To the Democratic Republic of Congo now, where M23 rebels have entered the strategic town of Uvira in the country's east. The advance is the biggest escalation in months and, if successful, would pave the way for the rebels to expand into other regions. It comes less than a week after the president of Congo signed a peace agreement with the leader of Rwanda, which is accused of backing the rebels. The UN says more than 200,000 people have been displaced by the fighting since the start of this month. Joined now by Maud-Salome Ekile Bofunda. She's a Congolese journalist in exile. Welcome to DW. Given the ceasefire agreement was just signed, Maud, why have M23 rebels taken the city of Uvira now?
I think it's very important to understand the origin first of this movement, to understand why they act this way. Because the Rwandan terrorists of the M23 are simply following their initial plan. The M23 is a movement that originated in Kigali in '94, and at the time, it was called the RCD. Then they were formed by the RPF, the political military movement of Paul Kagame, who at the time wasn't president yet. And in '94, it was a rebellion, that entered Congo with already this objective of controlling Congolese minerals, but also with this objective of annexing the mineral-rich areas of Eastern DRC. So these two objectives are inextricably linked. The RCD became the CMDP, then the M23 version 2012, and finally the M23 we know today, after a series of agreements in which the Congolese government made the mistake of agreeing to enter into peace processes with this movement as if it were an internal DRC matter, when in fact, it was a Rwandan group under Kigali's orders. And so today, the annexation project continues and in reality, when we look at the past, regardless of the diplomatic charades that have taken place with the peace processes and many agreements, it represents the failure, I think, of the diplomatic path in the DRC for almost 3 decades now.
Mm-hmm. Let's look at one point that you raised, that the area in question is rich in minerals, vital to new technologies. Mm-hmm. How does that affect or, complicate the conflict?
Resources are central to the Congolese crisis. If the Congolese people have been subjected to acts of genocides in '98, to war crimes, to crimes against humanity, is it for economic gain? So it's very central to keep that in mind. We understand the major role of this mineral trafficking, which primarily enriches Western and Chinese multinationals, but which mainly serves as a conduit through shell companies for China. And therefore, we can also ask Europe why, when it comes to laws for mineral traceability, Europe votes against them. Similarly, there is a massive refusal to recognize the Congolese massacres as genocide. But when you see this last declaration from the USA and several European countries, including Germany, it is clear that this country really wanted this trafficking to stop. They don't want that. Rwanda, Uganda, and Kenya would not have the means to continue their crimes if in DRC if Europe, if the Western countries decided to stop all of that.
How could it be stopped, in your opinion?
In my opinion, the solution is military. I think that we need to be realistic in the geopolitical sense of the term. The US, which orchestrating this great chaos with real coherence and continuity in its support to Kigali, acts realistically everywhere in the world. And so it's the same for Rwanda, it's the same for Uganda. So the question is why Congolese has been denied the right to use means other than diplomacy, while in reality the war continues and is being used to annex Congo and plunder our minerals. But furthermore, we must emphasize the responsibility also of the Congolese government, because many of whose members are also involved in the war business. When you have a country under attack for 3 decades and successive governments plunder the defense budget, in addition to the needs to reform institutions in the army, because we have to remember that by those agreements in the past, we accept to integrate elements of the M23, the CNDP, and the RCD inside the army. And so we understand that serious change must also occur at the Congolese government level, which ultimately obeys the same Western power as Rwanda and Uganda.
How can we address the root causes beyond that?
I mean, Rwanda has been playing a game, of narrative since '94. So if we follow all the communication of Kigali, it's very complicated to understand the situation because they are playing with everything. They are using all this term, the threat of FDLR. They are saying that they are not in DRC. They don't know if their troops are in DRC, but we know, with the drones footage that they are there. And so it's very complicated if we follow the narrative of Kigali, it's very complicated to understand the situation and to address the real problem. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure if it was your last question.
It was. We'll have to leave it there. That was Maud-Salome, Ekile, Bofunda.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.